Hi guys, my name is Megan and today we are on episode 6 of my Bookish crafting series. Alright, so like today's video title says, today we are doing a book-inspired tie-dye. So this is the sweatshirt I'm going to show you guys how to make. So I pulled the color inspiration for my sweatshirt from the cover for What Big Teeth. I really loved this like magenta and emerald color and of course the black. That's what I'm going to show you guys how to make today. I will have some tips and tricks in there because I learned a lot while doing this, going through the process, so I will share those with you. But let's go ahead and dive into the crafting video. Okay, so for this project you guys are going to need a container to do your tie-dye in because I do not recommend doing this in your bathtub, like a cooling rack to keep your project elevated out of the dye that collects at the bottom of your container. You will also need your dye, the bottles for mixing your dye in, some rubber bands, and some gloves, your project that you're going to be tie-dyeing, some pins, but I learned the hard way you should probably use a nail rather than a thumbtack or like a push pin. From this point, you're going to want to make sure your project is washed and dried, and then when you're getting ready to tie-dye your project, you're going to make sure your t-shirt or your project is wet before you start applying your rubber bands, and then you are ready to start putting your rubber bands on your project. So the method that I'm using for my project is a version of shibari tie-dyeing, and then just go ham with putting your rubber bands on. I will leave links in the description box to some of my favorite videos.
So what is that supposed to look like when it's done?
So the ones that I've seen, they spray the dye over this, and this gives it like darker patches, and these would be like lighter patches supposedly.
Okay.
If you're doing this particular method, I would not advise preparing your dye until you're finished with the rubber banding process, because you have maybe an hour and a half to work with the dye once it's prepared. So I would wait until you've done all of your rubber banding before preparing it. And like I said, prepare your dye according to the instructions on the back of the bottle for your fabric type and the dye type. So at the end of putting all of your rubber bands on, at this point I really should not have put the rubber bands around the entire tie-dye, and you will see me take them off when I put my tie-dye back in my container to actually dye it, and then just go ham with it. And I think the only thing that I have that I would say about this particular one, I wish I had done more of the emerald green color as like a base layer. And yes, so you probably will notice by this point that the bottles are very, very hot because of the boiling water that you use to make the dye. I would recommend wrapping your bottle in a towel that you don't care if it gets tie-dyed, or waiting just a little bit longer to dye your stuff. And yes, I do know that this looks like a complete mess. It looks like a nightmare. And you just gotta believe in the process of the tie-dyeing and it will come out okay. And if you use the push pin method to put holes in your bottle caps, I would highly suggest having a nail on hand to make the holes in the cap bigger, because that's what I ended up having to do because the dye kept getting stuck in the little holes. Just a little tidbit there for you. And just make sure that there's no real big white spaces you can see at the top of your shirt or whatever you're tie-dyeing. Okay, and then a note for when you are finally done with the actual putting dye on your project process, you will want to put your project in a plastic bag that you can tie shut and leave it for 24 to maybe longer, but about 24 hours you want to let it sit and like soak in the dye just so that it actually soaks into the shirt. Okay, so 24 hours after you've tie-dyed your shirt, it is time to finally rinse out your shirt or your whatever you're tie-dyeing. So for this process, I would highly recommend taking all of the rubber bands off before rinsing out the shirt, and then rinsing it so that you don't see any more color coming off of your shirt or whatever you're tie-dyeing. Wash it and dry it, and then subsequent washes, I would say maybe hang it dry after the first time you dry it because it will fade. All right, so now we are back to here. This is how my sweatshirt turned out. I particularly love this color right here, this green, but I also really enjoy the colors and how they mix together. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you guys make any book-inspired tie-dye, let me know. Tag me on Instagram. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't already but would like to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to follow me on social media for more bookish stuff, check out the links down below. Alrighty, bye guys!